Welcome back to the Discover Your Amazing Edge podcast, everyone. I'm Zev Halpern here in Washington, D.C.
And I am Sarah Polyakov in Washington State, and we are broadcasting coast to coast, nationwide, and worldwide. This is the Discover Your Amazing Edge Mind Shift Happens podcast. And today we are diving deep into one of the most powerful hidden forces in our lives, and it sabotages our lives actually, and that would be trauma. We're calling this episode Trauma, the Assassin from Within. But before we delve into this topic, which affects so many of us, we've got some really great news.
So, our website is finally done. YourAmazingEdge.com is now live with so many learning opportunities and healing opportunities. You have relationship problems or success has eluded you, please explore our site. You'll find a community that's healing, supportive of your goals and aspirations. And you'll meet our amazing mascot, Cyber Screamer, who is a unique role model for many aspects of our lives, and look forward to many antics from Cyber Screamer. And there he is
Meet Cyber Screamer.
in his calm state. Right. There he is
Yes,
in his calm state.
he teaches all of us about emotional regulation and dysregulation. Really cool mascot that we have.
So, trauma, it's not just something that happened to us in the past, it lives inside of us. It's a beast, like an assassin that strikes when we least expect it. It undermines our relationships, our confidence, our joy, and our potential. But the good news is, if you recognize it, it can, you can reclaim your power. You can work through it. But first and foremost is awareness. You got to get it out. You have to let this out somehow. And trust plays a huge factor in it.
Right. And this episode, we are going to be laser focused on trauma and explore the various aspects of it. And let's start by painting a picture of trauma. What exactly is that assassin within, Zev?
It happens in lots of forms. I've had people tell me about crazy situations that have traumatized them in childhood, in adulthood, and people who experience trauma, they see the world through these distorted lens. They don't see the world the same way we do. We look and see the world. They see the world in a much different way, and it affects every outcome of their life. Parents and teachers, friends, strangers. These are unfortunately some of the people who have victimized people in their lives, and people have kept it secret for their whole life. And imagine an assassin who knows you better than anyone. It hides in the shadows of your nervous system, your thoughts, it's in your body language, and it sits and waits for triggers, maybe a certain tone of voice, a rejection, even a success. Can you imagine, even a success, then it strikes
It does, even a success.
like bam, you're flooded with anxiety, shut down emotionally. You might self sabotage. You might say, why did I do that? A great opportunity just came your way and you blow it off or you sabotage it. The trauma is doing its silent work. It lives,
Exactly.
right, and they live with others. They don't even know what happened, but life is affected.
Right.
Trust is a big factor in this, and many suffer in silence because after a traumatic event, trust goes out the window. It's really hard to trust
Sure
anybody
does.
in your life, but the truth is that the answer. to getting through trauma is finding people who you can trust. And sure, there's a lot more to it than that. But if you don't find somebody to trust in your life to be able to let this secret, this horrible beast that lives inside of you and could eventually be your superpower, you can't move forward.
And this brings me to a topic. It's actually one of my signature speeches that I have developed. We have a signature speech. So if you've ever liked to hire Zev and I for a speaking event, we have a signature speech called Unresolved Trauma Finds a Voice. And let me tell you about why unresolved trauma finds a voice. Now, why do I say it finds a voice? Because usually when we have something traumatic, such as childhood abuse, we suppress it, we stuff it deep into those recesses of our mind because we don't want it tapping us on the shoulder and having those horrible images flood our minds each day, because it's very hard to function that way. So we stuff it down, and we think it's gone because we've pretty much forgotten about it. Well, the thing is trauma likes to be heard. So it will find ways that don't seem even linked to trauma to be heard. For example, I'm going to give you what happened to somebody in my own community, and this made the news. So I'm not giving any personal information away. We had a high school principal here who coached the football team and who was beloved by our entire community, but he had a traumatic event happen to him. And instead of seeking out a therapist and allowing that trauma out, he stuffed it. But the more he stuffed it, the more he started drinking. And so one day he got pulled over for his first DUI. That was a wake-up call. Everybody thought that was the wake-up call that he needed, but it wasn't a wake-up call at all. He got 2 more DUIs after that because he kept drinking, since he would not address this unresolved trauma. He just kept stuffing. He stuffed the DUIs. He wouldn't address any of it. So that just led to more DUIs, more arrests. Well, that led to him getting fired. The community completely rejected him, which was very sad. He had to sell a beautiful house on the water. Nobody wanted to have anything to do with him. His wife left him. And that is how trauma finds a voice. He was so focused on not addressing it that it found its voice through alcohol. And so trauma can find a voice through drug addiction, alcohol, lashing out at others when you don't mean to. It finds many ways out if you don't let it talk. And the way you let it talk is by addressing it with a professional.
Otherwise, it just leaks out. Your vat is only so big. You can only stuff stuff down, for so long till all of a sudden, the leakage begins. And then it leaks into every positive thing that happens to you in your life, the most positive things. And
it spoils. It literally spoils, like mold, like mold creeping along bread. It spoils everything good in your life if you don't address it.
Because it has, it has physiological realities. It dysregulates your nervous system. Your body stays in this fright thing, as we do till the danger passes.
Yeah.
What do? And then it drains you, affects your sleep, your digestion, your relationships, everything. So most importantly, Sarah, how do we recognize this terrible assassin's tactics?
How do we recognize the tactics? Well, we need to look at the parts of our lives that go wrong.
What are the signs?
So the signs, let's see, it really depends on who you are, I would say. So I can give a million different scenarios, but let's say you're a man, like the man that I spoke to. So he wasn't a drinker before then. The moment that he picked up his glass, that was a habit that he had not formed yet. Okay. So you're doing new things. That would be one. You're doing new things that are not a benefit to you.
Yeah, they're negative coping skills.
Yeah.
They're negative.
So you start engaging in these negative coping skills, right? You start acting in ways, you might start lashing out at people for no reason. You might become an angry driver. These are all things that aren't you. So you start doing negative things that just aren't you. And you start thinking, gosh, I don't even recognize myself. So those are some good clues.
You self-sabotage.
Yeah.
You get tight chest. You get stomach knots, chronic tension that has no obvious, mental cause.
Trouble sleeping.
All of a sudden, that old inner critic, which so many of us have in all kinds of forms. For somebody with trauma, the inner critic really is like an inner beast that keeps on ruining all the good things in your life and doesn't let you see. If you think the world is wonderful in front of you, and it is, you don't see it. You see it through these distorted
lenses. Yeah.
Of what happened to you, because what happened to you, was traumatic. And I know this person who was on a plane, and their parents were on the plane, but they were sitting somewhere else. And this, it was a woman, and this I don't know what to call him, just the person sitting next to you on the plane. I've heard many stories like this, but I know one personally. And this guy basically says to her, if you move or tell anybody what I'm going to be doing, you say, I'm going to hurt you, and I'm going to hurt you after this. And, proceeds to put his hands down her pants.
Oh my gosh. Really?
Plane with everybody watching their movies and everybody doing their thing.
Really?
And the trauma, of wanting to get on another plane. We know that the skies aren't friendly anymore.
No.
For sure. But imagine what that person has to carry with them every time they board a plane and sit down next to some stranger. I would tell you, be very careful. Because you just never know. Perpetrators, they perpetrate, and they do it clandestinely, and they do it through threats, and they do it through things, and they unfortunately they do it to subordinates. And the whole issue of clergy, and the whole issue of teachers, and the whole issue of parents. These are people who are over us. We respect them. We look for guidance from them, and they take advantage of and they rob people of their innocence. People have to carry it all the days of their life. I say you don't have to carry it all the days of your life, because there are ways to get past this.
And what did this woman do? Did it affect her personal relationships? I mean, I can only imagine.
Until she had to get some help.
Yeah.
She had to get some help, and she did, and she was able to overcome it, and it didn't affect. But I can promise it was never forgotten. This trauma, it loves isolation. It whispers, don't trust anyone. You're not good enough. Awareness is the first kill shot against trauma. When you're aware of it, you've already taken a major step in overcoming your own trauma. And look, the assassin's here again. Here it is again. You have to know that when it arrives, you have to recognize the signs that it acts on you, because it acts on everybody in a different kind of way. But you as the individual need to know, what is it doing? It creates just this horrible feeling, and so what do we do? How do we disarm this thing? Sarah, how do we heal ourselves? What do we do?
I really believe that you can't disarm trauma on your own. You really have to pick through it and take a shot at it with another person, usually a professional who's trained in dealing with trauma. There are many professionals who have certifications in healing from trauma, such as Zev and I. So I would say find a professional who knows about healing from trauma. You have to let it out. That's the first step. You can't allow it to stay inside you and keep festering. You have to let that trauma out. You have to tell somebody. And it really goes down to, I would say, changing your mindset, right? When you're working through it, you have to understand that if something happened to you, for example, let's take the woman on the plane. She's going to have to understand that not all men do that not all plane rides are going to be this way. She's going to have to learn how to differentiate, because men will trigger her, plane rides will trigger her, perhaps authority figures will trigger her, depending on who this man was who abused her. So she's going to have to work through all these triggers also that the trauma has caused. So it's really a lot of mindset changing.
The most important part is to rob the perpetrator of their power over you. That you need to take that power back. That is the beginning of your new life, when you take your power back after somebody took your power away. And a lot of people think, revenge might do that, but it's not. Revenge isn't the thing that does that. What does that is living a life that you're proud of, and finding a way to scrape and scratch and climb, until you can get yourself and do everything. And by the way, it's important. Like if you're in a relationship and you trust somebody in this relationship, you have to make a decision then, and you have to involve them in your situation. You have to tell them, how can you do? There are married people today. There are people in long-term relationships that don't understand for a second why their loved one is so weird when certain things happen. They don't have an idea. They don't know that back then a teacher did something to you, a clergy did something, some stranger, did something. You happen to walk down the wrong street and God knows what happened to you, something horrible and whatever. That's one part of it. You have to admit it. You have to get it out in the open, and you have to trust somebody, find somebody, to trust. The second part is that research is really important in this, because your body really knows, it's your body that tells you the most important information. So what they found is that things like yoga, deep belly breathing, these are things that ground you, when with things that ground you, your feet on the floor, these things tell your system, I'm safe now.
Yeah.
I'm safe. And have to be consistent, and because trauma is intense, so the way through it has to be somewhat intense.
Yeah.
Body work. Trauma lives in the body.
It does.
So talk therapy is a big part of it, but it's not enough. You have to explore somatic practices. And by somatic practices, I mean yoga, breath work, working with a trauma-informed practitioner who helps you release stored tension. And that way you start to feel like get back to yourself.
Yeah, exactly. And it's when you talk about trauma living in the body, again, I can't underscore enough that it changes us neurochemically. So we're not just dealing with the thoughts of trauma, we're dealing with the tremendous cortisol load that trauma puts on our body. We're dealing with actual systems that get affected in our body tremendously. And that's why so it's not just a mind thing. Trauma is a mind, body, soul thing. And that is why you have to get rid of it. It affects every aspect of you. And sometimes I recommend clinical hypnosis. I know that might sound woo-woo to some people out there, the concept of clinical hypnosis, but clinical hypnosis is different than the hypnosis that you see on the stage where somebody's telling another person to cluck like a chicken. That is for the stage. Clinical hypnosis is the opposite of that, I would say. And usually people are awake, but sometimes the hypnosis is what gets through to the mind because you're working with the subconscious there.
And also ask for therapists who know EMDR and internal family systems and somatic experiencing, because these are things that help reprocess your memories. Another really important part of trauma is your boundaries. Trauma really screws with your boundaries. You could become a people pleaser.
Yes.
You find yourself being overly promiscuous. These are the kinds of, that you need to recognize when toxic dynamics are in the air. Oh no, whoa, why am I? But you
And
can't
then
you can't help yourself. So
going forward.
you have to know how to step away when the triggers start to trigger you in all kinds of ways. You have to like say, "Oh, I know what this is," and you have to kind of go full stop, take a pause. What am I doing? What am I not doing? I can't say yes to this. I can't be a people pleaser. I can't deal with this toxic stuff that I've been dealing with. I mean, it's it's not it's not like progress. It's not linear. Progress isn't linear. You might disarm the assassin in one area, and then all of a sudden another area it pops up just out of there, because it's there. So in order to whether we fully recover or not is really up to the kind of life we end up living, and it's for each of us to judge how far we've come from it, and whether the things that we've done have made a point. And I saw that Edward Zia was here, so I'm just saying, hey Edward, nice to see you, and thanks for stopping by. But again, and I'll reiterate this thing: most people who experience trauma, they want to seek revenge. Who wouldn't? Like a person has taken your innocence, taken your joy, taken your. Why wouldn't you want to seek revenge? But the issue is revenge just isn't going to do it.
No, it's like
revenge, you beat somebody up. I mean, you hurt them. It isn't going to help the hurt that's hurting you. The only thing that's going to help the hurt is you can't wait, for what goes around comes around. Sometimes it does. Sometimes karma's a bitch. Sometimes what goes around comes around. But the truth is, the best possible way to shed some of this trauma is moving your life forward, and in the career area, in the social area, in the relationship area, in the intimacy area, which it really affects in a horrible way. The relationships where the other partner has no idea. They start to blame themselves. They think, what am I doing to this person that's hurting them so much? You had no play in it at all. But inside, the little beast demon that's basically living rent free inside your life and ruining it, is making this other person, and then they're going to back off of you. There's going to be no intimacy. There's going to be nothing, because guess who won? The perpetrator. So we got to find a way. We can't sit there, and spend our lives reliving horrible traumatic events. We have to move past them. And the good part of it is that now in social psychology, they have found scientific reasons and ways to move past it. And again, the somatic, yoga, breathing, these are things that ground us and will and can help us move. And it sounds kind of yoga. How could that possibly help me? With that I was raped, or that somebody had their way with me, or that
the nervous system.
Somebody hit me over the head,
yeah,
scared the crap out of me. Well, because this is the place in your body where it's stuck.
Yes, exactly.
You need to free it up. You need to free it up because it's like a cement. You got to just break it up and
yoga frees it up for sure. But trauma has a purpose, and it only has one purpose. It gives us coping strategies, but there comes a time when we need to say thank you for these coping strategies. Now I'm going to release you. I'm going to release you, right?
Yeah, like thanks a lot for, this and thanks a lot for that. But you know what? I'm moving on.
Yeah, I'm moving on. I'm moving on up. And there you have it. So
I mean, the assassin, is brilliant.
it
It,
is.
it acts in brilliant ways. And unfortunately, it affects your survival strategy. And this a traumatized person has decisions to make. It's so hard for them to make them. But awareness, the big A, please start with awareness. And I would ask, all of you, if this resonates with you, and somebody, who's suffering from this, let them know that there are cures, there are remedies that will move them past the place that they're stuck. And that's really Sarah and my purpose for including trauma, which is so important. It's such an important because the truth is the amount of people that are traumatized in this world has increased by big amounts.
Exponentially.
All through history, it's gone on, but now you can traumatize. I mean, look at the issue of shaming and internet. There are people who commit suicide because of the things that people, the mean, horrible, traumatic things of imagine, 20 people saying or sending a picture of you, or doing those kinds of things. We all see it on the news. It results in people harming themselves or living a life, of negativity. And it doesn't have to be that way. So the more of us that are informed about trauma and the possibility that someone we know has it because they act kind of weird or they act strange under thing, let's help them. And again, Sarah, anything else about trauma?
Well, I just wanted to say if you release it, you give yourself some peace. And I think you deserve the gift of peace, don't you?
Yeah, I do. And so look, I hope this has been informative today. Didn't want to harp on it. It's a difficult topic, very sensitive, but we live in a world where we can overcome this now. And
Thankfully.
I want to remind you about our website, youramazingedge.com, and that we do podcasts. And when you go on our new website, it's a world. Our website isn't just a website. It's a whole world of opportunities and healing. And I hope you take advantage of it. We both hope that you take advantage of it because we're going to be there. Sarah and I are dual coaches, meaning that when you get involved, in what we have to offer, you're going to get two people's experience, two people's strategies, and male and a female.
Exactly.
It's pretty well-rounded, like a 360 thing. And I hope
you don't have to go outside for a second opinion. The second opinion is inside the group here.
Exactly. So anyway, youramazingedge.com. Check it out. It just went live. Thanks for joining us today to talk about this really important topic of trauma. We're rooting for you always. And until next time, keep discovering your amazing edge.
Keep discovering your amazing edge, and we will see you soon.
And have a great week.
Have a great week. Thumbs up to everybody.